The Education Department has allowed private schools to continue implementing blended learning beyond November. On the other hand, full face-to-face classes will push through next month in public schools, except in disaster-hit areas.
Sa inamyendahang DepEd order, pwede pa rin mag-face-to-face o online classes. O hindi kaya ay mag-module ang mga nag-aaral sa private schools. Habang ang mga pampublikong paaralan naman, inabisuhan ng paghandaan ang pag-transition sa 5 araw na in-person classes simula sa November 2.
Another issue would still be the infrastructure issue. I think we have to admit that and recognize na talagang may kakulangan tayo sa classrooms, and that's why other schools are still implementing yung blended learning. It's really more so because of the shortages in classrooms and infrastructure.
No full-blast mandatory face-to-face classes after all. The Department of Education has amended the school calendar and will let private schools still do blended learning. Public schools, on the other hand, are required to conduct in-person classes only beyond November 2nd. We discuss this tonight on The Chiefs. Welcome to the Monday edition of The Chiefs. I'm Lingao. Online, Pamintuan of the Philippine Star. Ami, kamusta dyan? At happy Monday.
Hi. Happy Monday.
Yeah, daming store ngayon for Monday. And
Oo nga
I suppose it's a good thing.
Well, besides our main topic ngayon, hiningi ni Romulo Makalintal sa Supreme Court na itigil yung pag-postpone ng barangay
Unconstitutional.
and Sangguniang Kabataan election. So,
quite interesting. We were talking to Romy Mac in the other program just a few minutes ago. I think it's interesting kasi it's been the norm actually. Since the 2002 synchronized elections ng barangay tsaka SK, mas madalas pa yung postponement kasi
yun na nga eh. Sa akin, question niya, both the extension of the terms and the power to postpone ng Congress. So, tignan natin kung anong magiging ruling.
Yeah, and I do remember yung huling batch ng mga barangay officials, they were elected in 2013, dapat hanggang 2016, pero na-extend ng 2017, na-extend hanggang 2018. So, naka-5 taon. Yung SK naman nung batch na yun, naka-8 taon. Kaya
nga, mas matagal na nga sila dun sa mga local eh. Matagal pa sila sa mayors and congressmen actually.
Yeah, but on the other hand, something that also has to be considered, the election, well, the original date for the barangay SK elections, it's just a month and a half away. So, may panahon pa kaya yung makapag-desisyon ng Supreme Court at kung sakali lang, maibalik yung original date nang hindi nagkakaloko-loko.
Yun na nga, kailangan bilis-bilisan nila. Humihingi din si Mac ng TRO, di ba? Kaya pwede bilis-bilisan yun.
So that's going to be interesting for the next few weeks, di ba? Until at least we have a decision. Other stories as well, Director Paul Soriano, appointed Presidential Advisor on Creative Communications.
Oo, 1 peso a year lang naman daw yan. At saka talaga namang yan na yata ang papel niya in this administration, di ba? So, na-formalize lang siya.
Creative Communications.
And of course, yung mga nag-organize ng mga di ba, yung mga events na calling for creatives.
Yeah. And one more story. I don't know where this falls under. A sad day for BTS fans.
Ayan ang mga ayan yung mga bata nating na mga nanonood mag-military training. No exemption, sa kanila kung dito
sa kanila mahigpit sila. Although sometimes in the national interest, they do allow for deferment but not exemption, di ba?
Pero yun nga sa Korea, they will serve as role models for military service.
Yeah, so, no matter how famous or influential you are, the most you can get, if at all, would be a deferment, not an exemption. So something to learn from. Di ba? Something to learn from kung sakaling matuloy yung mga panukala. Anyway, Ami, we'll just go into a break. We will come back with our first topic for tonight. We will talk about yung decision ng DepEd na ituloy ang full face-to-face by November 2nd. So keep it right here on One News. The Education Department is allowing private schools to continue blended or full distance learning setups beyond November 2nd. Let's bring in our first guest for tonight, Acting Executive Director of the Philippine Business for Education, Ms. Justine Raagas. Magandang gabi, ma'am, and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Magandang gabi, Ed, Ami. Thank you for having us.
Good evening.
Okay. Ma'am, well, I suppose not much of a surprise for many na tuloy yung earlier deadline ng full face-to-face ng at least ng public schools. Pero when we were talking to the spokesman si Michael Poa, Attorney Michael Poa ng DepEd just I think last week, he also acknowledged na may problema pa rin sa infrastructure sa ilang eskwelahan. So meron pang mga considerations as to whether or not to pursue yung full face-to-face ng public schools. I'm wondering what you hear on the ground eh. Mukha bang swabing-swabe na yung transition natin to full face-to-face, at least for the public schools? Or are there still problems on the ground?
Well, una-una, before I answer that question, let me just say that we really commend this administration and the agency in really pushing for full face-to-face kasi kailangan talaga natin maibalik yung ating mga kabataan at mga mag-aaral back into the classrooms to really learning losses. So that's one. Of course, it is not without any problems. So we do see issues in terms of the lack of classrooms. So aside from that, yung need to do shifting because of the classrooms, as well as yung kinakailangan din ng repair. So these are still actually issues. These are challenges that are currently happening. But what we're hearing on the ground is that aside from shifting, there is also call to work together to build temporary learning spaces, reach out to partner organizations. Actually, may mga organizations din na gustong tumulong or mag-participate in building temporary classrooms or even working with private schools. Kasi di ba alam din natin yung private schools, may mga spaces or existing infrastructure din sila na pwedeng gamitin. In fact, there is also a suggestion to expand the voucher program para ma-maximize yung facilities ng private schools na pwedeng itap ng public school or ng DepEd para yung to really reduce school congestion.
So how should we look at it pala? Kasi iniisip namin, bakit yung private school pwede? Mas kaya ba nila yung blended learning? So yung problema sa congestion, of course, we know sa malalaking schools talagang hindi siya problema, no? Pero there are a lot of small private schools. So bakit pinapayagan sila?
So, I think we really have to look at it in the perspective of ano ba yung mga problema na idulot or what were the problems initially with the old way of delivering instruction during COVID, which was really like distance learning modalities. And dahil doon, many students, particularly those who are disadvantaged, and these are many of the students in public schools, who have had lack of access, so lack of digital resources. They did not have access to information, communications, and technology tools, which are important for a proper implementation, diba, of a blended learning modality. So nakikita natin, if it's really disadvantaged kids, the only way for them to really learn is to bring them back to the classrooms. So for others naman, for schools who have been able to implement blended learning modalities seamlessly during the pandemic sa mga kabataan na may mga access naman to computer, infrastructure, data, pwede siyang gawin. And that's why they're also given that option na pwede nilang ipagpatuloy yung hybrid or ipagpatuloy yung hybrid and also increase the days of classes as well in the classroom.
Ma'am, okay, but ma'am, that's assuming. I suppose that's assuming that all private schools are well funded, have all the proper equipment, and have very good teachers. I don't know how valid that assumption would be. But pushing that forward, do you think that there's no danger at all that even in the private schools, for example, that mahihirapan yung mga estudyante to learn as much as they could or should or would kung nag face-to-face, like what the public schools are doing?
Definitely, we hope that they self-regulate and they assess themselves na parang, okay, given we are school A, ano ba yung capacity ng mga students natin? Does everyone have access to computers, internet? Ano ba yung financial capacity ng mga estudyante natin? And then when they're able to assess that and decide for themselves, hopefully given this new amendment. So this flexibility, I guess, looking at it, there is that flexibility, but then the responsibility is then up to them. Hopefully, they put the students front and center, na hindi lang dahil may flexibility, gagawin nila kung ano yung mas madali or mas easier.
Or mas mura, or mas cost effective.
Well, would you have any idea kung ano kayang percentage ng private schools will be opting to continue hybrid learning?
I wouldn't have that data on hand, ma'am.
Pero from the reports you are getting, kasi nung pandemya, we understand napakarami nagsarang mga private schools, di ba? Because a lot of the students moved to the public schools para maka-avail yung mga parents ng free tuition. Sa situation ngayon, are you getting updates on what's happening with these troubled private schools? Kasi, di ba, even only recently, merong malaking school dito sa Metro Manila na nagsara eh. Di ba? After accepting all the tuition for the coming school year. So, kumusta na kaya yung situation ngayon?
Well, yes, may mga schools talaga na nahirapan because of lack of enrollees. And I also don't have that data on hand as to whether how many will decide to fully do online or fully do hybrid. But we are hoping that marami pa rin sa kanila will do at least some semblance or really bring their students back to the classrooms.
Ma'am, let me push that again further down the road. Kasi parang we're putting a lot of trust in the private school system that they would do what is good for the students, regardless of the costing and regardless of the bottom line. But do we have enough in terms of monitoring and regulation of the private schools to make sure that they're not going to be cost-cutting and opting for example, continued blended learning, even if it's at the expense of the student?
In terms of monitoring, I guess they would hold themselves accountable so the private schools also have associations, right? So
yes,
they are, yes, so they would hold themselves accountable against each other. And of course, this is what we're saying is that if students don't go to school, they don't do well, they test bad, learning losses are higher. So if you're a school, and diba, given now that, it's very competitive, private schools have to compete to get students in. So if you're a school and you don't do well, your students don't do well, anong incentive? What is the incentive, right? For doing that? Parang you might even end up losing enrollees in the future kasi your students are doing badly.
Your group has been monitoring the impact of the pandemic on education, diba, both private and public. What's your general assessment now?
So in terms of the pandemic has really caused detrimental and really huge learning losses. So as you know, in the past few weeks or months, we were really talking about learning poverty increasing to 90%. And so what we're seeing is that the longer we wait for our schools to open, the heavier it is really for loss of knowledge and skills. And then the only way to reverse that is to bring kids in school so that teachers can assess them well and then can make the necessary adjustments based on those assessments. So given that, what we've been following is that hopefully they will continue to learn more and more inside the class once mapupush na talaga yung full face-to-face.
Well, especially yung the lower grades, I understand yung DepEd had their own study na parang the grade 1 students appear to have suffered the most, if not the most, at least a lot in terms of reading and mathematics because of yung hindi pagpunta sa eskwelahan. I'll go back to that question earlier. Do we have enough safeguards kaya to make sure? I know you said na we can rely, I suppose, on the associations of private schools. Pero may concern din kasi sa by the time the reports get to filter up, baka it's a bit too late. If you know what I mean, di ba? It does take some time.
Yeah, so Ed, to your point, to your point on grade 1 students really bearing the brunt of many of the effects because unang-una, they haven't learned, well, most of them don't know how to have, or those coming from kindergarten even don't know how to read, how to write, and these are and do maths, basic literacy, numeracy, and these are things that not parents aren't trained to do, right? So when we were doing distance learning, and particularly the modular version where they were given papers, and then parents were parents were expected to give these lessons at home, napakahirap talaga. But now, given na sa classroom na there is classroom instruction, and hopefully in the private schools, the type of distance learning that's being done is hybrid, there is use of technology, there is still some face-to-face time with teachers because of, there's video, there are lessons that's done on Zoom or on video. Pwede siyang, pwede siyang ma-improve because yun nga, kahit hybrid learning siya, hindi expectation naman is not that yung parents yung gagawa nun.
Well, on the other hand, have you seen anything positive that emerged from our 2 years of hybrid learning? Ano yung pwede nating ma-sustain kaya to continue?
So anything you mean positive in terms of?
Something, for education, yes.
Well,
positive takeaways from 2 years.
As a parent, the only, I guess, positive thing I could say is I've been able to spend more time with my daughter, and I've been able to see her grow. But medyo, so personal, this is personal, but medyo mahirap talaga because nakikita talaga natin na nahihirapan sila. So I guess that's what I could answer na positive, but I'm very happy, and of course in PBED also we're very happy that we are going back to the classrooms talaga. Kasi matagal na namin tong kinaklamor back in 2021 pa na it's not just also learning, it's not just the grades, right, and the literacy numeracy scores, but it's also socio-emotional development that they can't really that's been hampered because of they're not exposed to many people, they're not exposed to their peers, and yes.
Yeah. I can imagine what you're saying, di ba? A big part of learning is the engagement with your peers, as well as with the teacher. Pero di ba, it's also how you learn to deal with society.
Correct. They also learn life skills, right? And that's really important. That's really important as they move on in life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, and we can hear the views of the parents.
Yeah. Okay.
Not best.
Yeah. Maraming salamat, ma'am. Ma'am Justine Raagas, Director of the Philippine Business for Education. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much, Ami.
Thank you, ma'am. And at this point, let's speak to Mr. Willy Rodriguez, the President of the National Parent-Teacher Association of the Philippines. Sir, magandang gabi and welcome to the Chiefs. Sir, I'm afraid you're still muted. You'll have to unmute.
Good evening, Sir Ed and Mami, nice to be here and thanks for the invitation.
Magandang gabi po and thank you for joining us tonight. Sir, same question I suppose yung desisyon ng DepEd na yung public schools a full face-to-face by November 2 as earlier scheduled, but at the same time allow the option of continuing blended learning for the private schools.
Okay, yung sa yung sa calling ni Attorney Noel Estrada ng ating Kokopeya is very reasonable naman, As one of the is still in the adjustment period yung ating private schools as they suffered a lot, like San Lorenzo in Quezon City, yung nagsara. So, ganun ang nangyari, And then, about dun sa ating public school, dire-diretso yung ating, is very beneficial to all, public students and parents, and especially the economy, At ang po natin dyan is, we have been looking forward to that.
Pero so yung allowing the private schools the option of continuing blended learning, given what we've seen with how much more difficult it is to do blended learning and learn as much as you would have if it was face-to-face. Your perspective, sir, hindi ba mas mahirapan ng mga estudyante sa private schools?
Actually, kasi sa ating sa public schools, okay, may anak kasi ako nag-aaral sa public at sa private, to the experience, okay, mas kasi, mas kompleto ang gamit ng ating mga private schools. They have the computers, and other instrument, and then sa public school kasi talagang they need to go to schools. Ang ating po nasa private school is more talagang keen on learning. Kaya mas maganda po yung at least let us give the a chance to the private school, kasi nga po dito ang enrollment po kasi nung ating mga private school, nagbaba sila ng presyo. So until now the price is still mababa pa rin, para mawalan sila ng baka next year pwede na silang mag-full face to face.
Mr. Rodriguez, is there any strong concern among parents tungkol sa COVID infection kapag nag-full face-to-face classes na? Kasi nagwa-warning na naman yung mga health experts, baka daw nandito na yung highly infectious na bago na namang subvariant ng Omicron na kahit daw yung mga regular vaccines nape-penetrate niya.
Okay, yung aming problema na lang talaga dyan, there are parents na yung talagang hindi pinababaksinan yung kanilang mga anak kasi nga merong ika or something or takot, Also, the same teachers, But yung ating, sinasabi nga natin, the public school parents are mas nakakatipid sila kung face-to-face ang klase, And then at least yung learning ng mga bata dire-diretso. And na po namin yan, napag-usapan na po namin, we are living with COVID, Hindi na po mawawala yan. So ngayon sa face-to-face po, handa na po ang ating pamahalaan, ang ating DepEd at ang ating mga magulang. So, andyan na po yung risk, Okay, at sa po natin, sa trend po natin, ang nangyayari po ngayon, parang pawala na po ang COVID.
Meron ba kayong hinahanap na any particular measure na inaasahan nyo na makukuha nyo by the time mag-full face-to-face? Halimbawa, for the teachers?
Actually, we need to help our teachers, especially sa kanilang mga time. Tama yung mga sinasabi ni VP Sara, At least we have a very strong leader in DepEd na talagang marami siyang pagbabagong ginawa. So, tapos ang ating mga mambabatas naman tulad ng Senate, to empower us, naglabas sila ng na-approve na yung batas ng Parent Effectiveness Service Program Act, ni Senator Willy Rodriguez. So in partnership, totoo niyan, ang balita dito, i-empower na po yung ating mga magulang to be part of the instruction, instructors, para po sila yung in partnership with the schools, and also in the local government. So napakaganda po nung pinalabas na batas po yun, Republic Act 1108, Parent Effectiveness Service Program Act. So isa po yun sa makakatulong sa aming mga parents na yun talagang to be part of the school and the government.
Pero sir, let me ask you the same question I asked Ms. Justine Raagas of the Philippine Business for Education, our previous guest. How confident are we that the private schools are monitored and regulated well enough to ensure na yung mga estudyante sa private schools ay hindi magkakaroon ng problema sa continued blended learning? Kasi sabi nga natin, di ba, na okay ang face-to-face finally na ibalik para mas matuto yung mga bata. But at the same time, give some leeway to the private schools. And I suppose in this way kasi mas we're putting our trust in the private schools that they're doing what's best for the students in terms of deciding on whether or not to go full face-to-face or continue blended learning. Pero yun nga, what safeguards do we have or how certain are we that they will make the right decisions?
Okay, ang magulang po sa ating depend po yan talaga sa magulang between public and private. Sa private po, very nakatutok po lahat ng mga magulang diyan. At saka nakikita po natin diyan they have the trust with the private school, no. And then ang mga magulang po diyan is very tawag dito, interactive, no. Tulad po namin kahit ang anak ko po ngayon is twice a day, twice lang in 1 week, 2 araw lang sila in-person classes, tapos in 3 days is na. So, ang sinasabi nga natin diyan, no, ang PTA po is very in close contact with the problems, and then with very in monitoring.
Yes, sir. Sir, if you don't mind, I'll zoom into that. Of course, without naming your child's school, would you know if your child's school has already decided on whether to continue blended learning or to go full face-to-face, and your reaction to whatever decision that is?
Okay, I support the following up Attorney Noel Estrada of our COCOPEA. Talaga po ever since kasi binabanggit po natin yan kung ano po yung situation ng ating private school at sa public schools. So, bali talaga po okay po yung pagbigyan po natin ang private school to have given natin ang leeway sila to have a blended learning, to continue their hybrid, at very naman po capacitated naman po yung kanilang mga school at ang mga estudyante on the hybrid.
Mr. Rodriguez, there's a continuing debate kung ano yung medium of instruction natin, kasi yung iba sabi hindi daw nag-work yung mother tongue, at si President Marcos sinabi na niya gusto niyang bumalik sa emphasis on English. Does your group have any particular stand on this issue?
Okay, yung mother tongue natin, nasa Senate kami kanina with Senator Win Gatchalian. Okay, marami pong pagkukulang yung ating DepEd at hindi po na for the past 10 years, hindi po tumaas yung ating MBT, mother tongue, At ang po dito sa saliksik po na ginawa po kanina ni Senator Win Gatchalian, mukha pong pinag-aaralan po kung pwede pong tanggalin. Ang stand po kasi ng DepEd dyan is alisin muna, and then ang tulad po ng isang ginawa sa Baguio, sa Cordillera, labing siyang po yung kanilang dialect doon, at hindi po talaga ang ginagamit ko lang po is Iloco. So talagang dapat pong pag-aralan po yung ating mother tongue, At dito may suggestion po ang Tinagia na igawin pong try language, And then also dati po kasi by language lang po yan, So ito po sa decision po ng DepEd, alisin po muna pag-aralan. We support that, and also we support yung ginagawa ng Senate na pag pinag-aaralan nila, hinahanap nila kung paano ma-improve yung ating MBT, MLE.
Sa tingin niyo, kung ipupush nga yung kagustuhan ni President Marcos to emphasize English, at what grade level dapat siyang umpisahan?
Okay, sa atin dito, meron sa ating K3, ang atin dito, ang sinasabi nga natin, kung yung pinaka-mother tongue mo, kung ang bata ay lumaki sa English, at start at a very young age, At ang advantage po nga niya, yung ating po mga nasa probinsya, they are more okay in doing English, For example, sa Bacolod, they call yung yellow, they call it ice, And then also, most of our kids in the, marunong silang magsalita ng English, kumanta ng English, but they cannot read and write the English. So yung po dito, very advantageous po yung sinasabi ni Presidente na let's talk the international language.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sir, last question lang from me. Yung decision ng DepEd with regard to public and private schools, do you want to see that go into the next school year, or wait and see lang tayo?
Okay, ang lang po yan, yung ating dire-diretso na po yung ating face-to-face, we're looking forward and dire-diretso. It will help the economy go back. And then also, let's actually give way to the request of the private schools na yung blended hybrid and blended learning muna sila, the same with the face-to-face, for them to adjust. Kasi kung makikita niyo po talaga yung hirap ng ating mga private schools. So now, we have a proposal, no? The National PTA, we have a proposal to amend 7116, no? The inclusion of civil society organization PTA, private school PTA in the local school board as representative.
Okay. Mr. Willy Rodriguez, President ng National Parent-Teacher Association of the Philippines. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight.
Maraming salamat po, sir.
Ingat po.
Thank you.
We are starting up another conversation right after this break, so please stay with us.
Media workers have expressed their alarm over unannounced visits made by the police, saying it causes unease and violates their right to privacy.
There was no written directive that was given by the PNP National Headquarters. With respect to the visitation to some of residences of our media practitioner, the directive instruction came from the leadership of PNP National Capital Region Police Office.
Ang insidente yan nagdulot ng pangamba sa mga miyembro ng media, kaya nag-story na ang PNP.
Meron din po kasi mga instances na mga kaibigan natin sa media ay gusto nila ay discreet. Baka naman po kasi pag pumunta doon na naka-uniform at may sasakyan doon na mobile police car, ay baka iba na naman ang maging interpretasyon.
Welcome back to the Chiefs here in One News. The NCR Police Office and the Interior Department have apologized for unannounced home visits to journalists by plainclothes policemen over the weekend. We discussed this with Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility Trustee and seasoned journalist Mr. Vergel Santos. Vergel, magandang gabi and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Guys, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us again and welcome back. Anyway, Vergel, several concerns over the weekend aired by several journalists. Among them, of course, hindi naka-uniforme yung mga dumalaw sa kanila ng police, naka-unmarked vehicles, at walang timbre man lang. Biglang dumating at nagtanong-tanong at, well, basically, I suppose, nag-imbestiga. Your reactions to how the police reacted to the recent events?
Well, apparently the police apologized for not announcing the visits and also for sending people in uniform. We are missing the point here. The point is the police should not at all, whether in uniform or out of uniform, visit journalists' homes. Why? Given the emerging culture in the security services, it is more intimidating than reassuring for police to be visiting news people. So, if you ask me, hanapin na lang nila yung solusyonan nila yung nangyayari. Huwag na nilang gumawa ng kung ano-ano pang plano kamukha ng pag-visit sa mga mamamahayag. Well, ba't kailangan bisitahin yung mga yan? Ano? At bayaan nila na ang mamahayag ang pumunta sa kanila kung ano man ang kailangan ng mga mamamahayag na proteksyon. Pero for them to, on their own, make such visits, para sa akin, it's more intimidating than reassuring.
Actually, sir, hindi rin clear kung kung paano ginawa yung selection, kung sinong dadalawin. We haven't divined any pattern as to how they selected which journalists to go visit.
Sino ba? Sino ba? Kaya nga sabi ko nga, mabuti pa wag na lang dalawin. Magantay na lang ng gustong padalaw. Yung magantay ng gustong padalaw, yung basta wag dadalaw na lang. Nakakaano yan maliwanag yan especially today. Alam mo, dito sa atin, sa Metro Manila, ang lakas-lakas ng presence ng freedom groups dito Pero nangyayari pa yung mga patayan, kamukha nang nangyari kay Percy. Yung pananakot sa inyo, nangyayari pa. So, iba na itong, iba na itong sitwasyon Maliwanag na the situation has clearly deteriorated. And not only that, not only deteriorated, the security services are not, don't seem to be part of the solution. They seem more part of the problem. So, to me, my basic point is do this in the basic and credible law and order ways. Investigate, pursue suspects, and put whoever might be found credibly guilty or not necessarily guilty, but credible suspects, put to justice. Ganun lang naman. Huwag na yung mga dalaw-dalaw Mas nakakaano pa yan Mas nakakaligalig pa sa mga mamamahayag yan. Parang lalong, ang pakiramdam ng mamahayag, lalong nai-intimidate lang sila. Hindi naman nare-reassure Also, I'm saying this because of the emerging culture in the police, military, and other security services. Remember yung mga periodista, yan ang binabansagan na terorista.
Sa takbo ng eksplanasyon ng police, kaya nga daw sila nagpadala ng ganon, dahil nga parang nag-escalate, dahil pati dito sa Metro Manila, meron ng pinapatay na journalist.
Huwag nilang puntahan. Proteksyonan nila, hindi nila kailangan puntahan ng periodista at dalawin para proteksyonan. Kailangan ba yun? Ang kailangan dyan, ang pagpuproteksyon, mabuti pang hindi naalalaan ng periodista para hindi na-intimidate ang periodista. Kung talagang gusto mong proteksyon, basta proteksyonan mo na lang. You make sure na ang mga ginagalawan na mga sitwasyon at mga lugar ng ng mga periodista, ng mga mamamahayag, safe. Yun lang naman. So hindi kailangan dalawin. Yun lang ang sa akin. Okay.
What do you think of the apology of si Ben-Hur Abalos? Siyang nag-apologize in behalf of the police.
Ang apology lang naman dahil nagpadala ng pulis at saka hindi naka-uniforme. Ang ibig sabihin, pwede ang magpadala. Sa susunod, pag nagpadala ako, walang kotse ng pulis saka walang uniforme. Anong pagkakaiba nun? Mukhang hindi nakita ni Chairman Abalos yung punto So, ang una, hindi na dapat dagdagan pa ang pag-intimidate sa mga periodista sapagkat sobra na Many news people and news organizations have been labeled a terrorist or in any case, enemy of the state. Bakit kailangan gawin yun? Doon lang makikita mo, and the more they do this, they only signal to the wrong people what they should do. Yung mga tinatawag nilang mga vigilante yan. The more they do these things, the more signals they give to the wrong people about what to do. Pagka binisita ang periodista, ito binisita ng pulis, siguro itong mga binisitang periodista na ito ang may problema. By the simple visits of police, certain signals are put out. na kaya binisita yan kasi may problema yan. No, why should you do that at all?
And well, I talked to some reporters, and their concern is that the message that can come across is we know where you live.
Exactly. That's the basic
I mean, that's one concern by some reporters I've talked to. But at the same time, let me ask you this. Let me go in another direction. The other concern of some reporters is the apparent leak in data privacy. Kasi it's different for policemen to visit you at your home because they know you and they know where you live, so they know where to look for you. But some of the reporters who were complaining were surprised that dinalaw sila sa bahay nila at alam niyo pala kung saan ako nakatira, gano'n.
Yes, but you know, to me, it's so easy for these people to know exactly where you are, to know exactly what you do, to know where exactly you might be at certain times, because it is their business, you know. But to use that business in signaling the wrong, in giving out the wrong signals to the wrong people, it's another matter. You know, iba na yon. I mean, to know where you are, to know where you hang out, to know where you live, to know where you might be in certain situations, should be used properly by the police. And how could they use that? Secure the places in which they know news people would be present, you know. That's my point. Hindi yung bibisitahin nila. There's no point sa visits, Walang punto,
Vergel, nakaka-100 days na itong new administration, no?
Oo.
Na-assess mo na. Siguro, you can see a trend na. Kumusta yung press freedom and what can you see for press freedom under this new administration?
Ito namang this administration seems to me a presidency by default. This presidency seems to me simply allowing the former regime to continue on its own momentum. Wala namang sinasabing iba no? Hindi tinitigil yung war on drugs, hindi tinitigil yung red tagging, hindi naman tinitigil yung relationship with China. Wala namang tinitigil So, ang sa akin, this is a presidency by default in favor of the past regime. So, effectively, what is happening now is the past regime carrying on because of his default and on its own, on that regime's own momentum. So, wala talagang nangyayari. Wala namang itong presidency itong ginawa Basta binayaan lang na tumakbo yung tumatakbo ng mga nangyayari o plano.
Well, recently, sabi ni President Marcos, he promised to promote and protect media rights. Kung talagang tututuhanin niya to, what do you want to see him do? Kung sakaling sincere nga yung pangako na yun.
Dapat i-deploy niya properly yung mga security services. Hanapin yung mga patigil niya yung red tagging for one thing. You know? Ipatigil niya yung red tagging for one thing. In the second place, pa-review niya yung mga cases na isinampa sa mga mamamahayag. Pangatlo, sabihin niya sa mga pulis na huwag niyong bisitahin ng mga periodista. Simple lang Basta gawan niyo na lang ng paraan para protektahan sila. And the only way and the best way to do it, to ensure that wherever they might be operating, those places are safe. Ganun lang. Ilang ang gusto kong makita pero wala kasing nangyayaring ganun Ang nangyayari lip service and even vague lip service wala naman talaga sinasabing ganun kasi ito namang presidency to. It's a presidency also platitudes, Nothing specific, no specific programs, no nothing. So it is worrisome. It is worrisome what's happening, especially now that these things are happening right here. Where can you imagine right here in Metro Manila, where the freedom and rights groups are operating most strongly, and whose presence high profile. Ano nangyayari na dito nung araw yan? These things used to happen in the provinces where where places are not lighted and population are sparsely distributed. Now it's happening right here in Metro Manila.
Pero there are also those who say that at the outset this president is not as antagonistic to the press as the previous president. Of course, we're looking at a pretty low bar here in terms of comparison.
Yes.
But yeah, you do have that comparison, and people are saying na kahit paano, even if he was not as easily accessible to other members of the media during the campaign, hindi siya as combative as his predecessor.
Well, he doesn't have to be combative. He is not expressly antagonistic. You know, that's one thing. But the mere fact that he is presiding by default, he is allowing the old regime to carry on its own momentum. That's what I'm saying. Wala kang nga sinasabi. Hindi mo sinasabing ayaw mo sa periodista, pero pinapabayaan mong mangyari ang mga nangyayari. Ganon din yun eh. Yeah.
Well, Vergel, you mentioned red tagging. Sabi ng administration that's freedom of expression. If you can dish it out, you have to be able to take it. What do you think of that?
What is the equivalent of red tagging that the news people are doing to people in government? Tell me. What is the equivalent that they're saying that the press is dishing out? We must understand a few things. One is that the press is the constitutional. It's the constitutional representative of the people as as watchdog for the people on the government. I mean, that's basic. No? Walang equivalent yun sa Estado. Ano? At certainly, there is no equivalent to red tagging on the part of the news people. What can they do? Well, the news people are doing anything. The news people are expected to criticize, to operate as an oversight institution. That's basic. That's a constitutional role. The media, pero sila wala naman sa kanila yon. And the Constitution and the framers have made it so because wala tayong kalaban-laban doon sa puwersa ng Estado. Tayo, meron lang tayong mga TV, wala nang periodiko no? And online. Sila meron din ng TV, meron din silang online. Pero bukod doon, meron silang pulis, may army at may BIR. Ano meron tayo? Kaya ginawa ng framers na itong press ay dapat protektahan ng konstitusyon. Yan ang highest rights, highest freedom.
Pero can you see any improvement at all in the past 100 days sa interaction ni President Marcos with mainstream media?
No, I haven't seen him meet the press. Has he met the press?
Yung mga may mga
Same way the Duterte has not.
Pag he has, may mga na siya
pagka lang naman naipit siya, sasagot siya. But have you, it is one thing to be interviewed and another thing to give answers. This president has not given us answers. This president has given us platitudes. Every time he was asked, what should we do with given the recent hostage taking against former Senator De Lima? What did he say? He said, "I think we should talk to De Lima and ask if she might want to be transferred, to be in detention." No, the idea is this is against former Senator De Lima. The case is apparently concocted. What he should do is to have these guys investigated and set straight. Puro ganun naman siya. Tanungin mo siya about red tagging. He has not stopped. He has not lifted a finger to stop red tagging. He has not. And everybody is filing left and right cases against the media. He has not done anything. This is a passive presidency, a defaulting presidency, and by being so, it has allowed the former regime to go on. Ganun ang nangyayari.
Sir, may baka ng konti. Today, the President swore in a new presidential advisor on creative communications, Director Paul Soriano. Your thoughts on this new position? Well, he gets 1 peso every year, if that's any consolation. But your thoughts?
You know, the phrase creative communication by itself, the meaning that it puts across is that they are going to manipulate information. You don't need creative information. All you need is to tell the truth, to give the facts, but not to communicate creatively. That's why when I heard about it, the phrase itself did not sit well with me. In fact, it has made me feel even more worried that there is now a man in charge of creative communication. They have been trying to communicate creatively, but they haven't been very successful about it. They came out lying instead. So they probably needed someone to be less seen as doing what they have been doing all along in any case, But still, this is all about creative communication. They have been practicing creative communication, except that they have not been very creative and very effective. But creative communication, I don't see what use it has. What we know is truthful, factual communication.
Okay, well, maraming salamat, Mr. Vergel Santos of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. Thank you, sir, for joining us
salamat
tonight.
sa inyo, Ami. At,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, boss. And that's it for the chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.